Please forgive me for sitting during this talk. I'm having a bit of a low energy day, so we'll start off maybe a bit low key, and we'll go from there. My name is Rotem. I've been in the industry for a little while now. I actually started here in UMBC. Today, oh hey, look, I got a slide for that. I had a very fortunate opportunity right out of school to get into the industry. Worked on a few mobile games, a couple of sports titles. I had a variety of different AAA studio experience, which varies quite a bit from the indie experience, of course. Just as a quick disclaimer, I am a bit out of the loop. It's been several years since I worked as a hiring manager or since I applied for a job. And I've been on medical leave for about 18 months. So, keep in mind that I'm mostly giving you my perspective as somebody who's been in the industry, but not somebody who's been super in touch for the last couple of years. So take what I say with a grain of salt, but hopefully you'll find some value in this. So let's start off. The cake is a lie. 2% of entry-level applicants specific to game development in North America are going to get hired this year. That is based on data collected by Tencent Games Business Development Director. He's got some good stuff going, trying to help the games industry through this difficult time. If you're following the industry at all, you may be familiar with lots of layoffs that are happening. And of course, the proliferation of AI in the industry, folks are trying to figure out the right balance of human resources and more technical resources. And unfortunately, it's creating a situation where it's difficult to enter directly from school or just in general at the associate level into the industry. I was actually planning to give another talk initially to help you get into the studios and kick ass there. But the reality is that is a very difficult thing to do right now, just statistically, regardless of who you are and what your qualifications are, just based on number of applicants to number of job openings. It's not looking good for entry level, and it's okay to feel doubt. I actually had a kind of a moment myself, up until now as a software engineer, I wasn't super worried about, AI taking my job, so to speak. I was playing around with some AI Copilot prototyping tools and put a prototype together that normally might have taken me a couple of months. It took maybe 2 weeks, not even. And I didn't write a single line of code, barely even looked at the code to help the AI troubleshoot. And that was a weird feeling for me. Am I actually going to have a job coding ever again, right? So, the world changes around us, the industry changes, but fortunately the principles for understanding ourselves and the world around us and how we interact doesn't change. So let's talk today about what we can do with the current situation, where y'all are at, and if you're interested in getting into developing games, how do you do that? Okay, getting past the entry-level hump. Of course, making games is largely software development. Obviously, there are some elements to game development that are specific to games, not just business applications. But the nice thing is, if you get a job in software more broadly, a lot of those skills are going to be transferable. And so I actually know quite a few folks who worked either in software or honestly in other industries, in telecommunications, in finance. Not everybody starts in games right away, whether because they couldn't get the job or they never even knew that was an option. So generally my advice here is to design your alter ego. So I want everyone for a moment to just close your eyes and imagine yourself 5 years from now, or if you're not near graduation, 5 years after graduation. What kind of job do you have? What do people say about working with you? That you're a hard worker, that you'll always stop what you're doing to help somebody out, that you really know your stuff, that you're great at research, whatever it is that is sort of the rock star you in 5 years. Once you have a sense of who that is and who you want to be, it becomes a lot easier in any particular situation that you're not sure what to do, or even if you know the right thing to do and you just don't want to, channel your alter ego. Basically, you're working now for your future self, and your alter ego 5 years from now will thank you for it, right? Definitely want to take any opportunity to develop your network and your brand, and I'll talk a bit more specifically about building up your network later. When I say your brand, sorry, you guys can open your eyes. When I'm talking about your brand, so if you think of like a corporate brand, like a fast food chain or something, you might think about, oh, what are the design elements that you might see there in their logo and their colors? What kind of statements are they making? Are they involved in any sort of like political lobbying or whatever it is? So when I talk about an individual's brand, it's the same sort of thing. Like when folks think about me, who is it that they're thinking about? What experiences have they had with me? What have they heard from other people? Everything that you do as a professional, whether in software or more specifically in games, it contributes to your brand. And, just keep that in mind when you're interacting with people, anytime that you're in a professional setting. What you're doing, what you're saying, it does affect your brand, and it's up to you what direction you want to take that. And I'll also say, while you're trying to get past that entry-level hump and throughout your career, make sure that your portfolio is a living representation of the problems that you've solved, the things that you're interested in, and the experiences that you've got. And I'll also say, software can get deprecated very quickly as operating systems evolve. For example, there was a whole era, I think in the 2000s, folks were making a lot of interactive documentaries. It was like a heyday for it, but they were all using Flash, which doesn't exist anymore. And so now the internet is devoid of all of these documentaries that people made. Why is that relevant to your portfolio? Take videos, take pictures. First of all, most folks, when they look at your portfolio, are not going to bother installing anything, even if they could run it, until they're convinced that it's worth their time. And videos and photos will last a lot longer in terms of the technical capability for whatever modern devices people have to be able to actually see what you've made. Okay, let's talk about sharpening your razor. You've probably heard of Occam's razor, which is a strategy for determining the most likely explanation for some situation. Great for troubleshooting software and investigating murders, probably. So a razor is just a guideline that helps you narrow down your field of options. And it's so called because they like to say that it kind of cuts away the things that are not likely to be helpful, right? So what do razors have to do with games? Well, as we discussed, getting a game dev job at a studio as a new grad right now is not super likely. And so developing a razor will help you narrow down the very wide universe of anything you could possibly do to move you closer to your goal of working in games. So it's not about figuring out what you could do, it's about narrowing your focus so that you are making the best use of your time. What projects should you work on, and who should you work with, and what tools you should use, all that good stuff. Knowing what razors you're operating with, again, just allows you to focus your energy. Razors are context dependent though, meaning that they apply to a particular question, whether it's, who done it or what's causing this bug in my software. So when we talk about what projects you should work on, that kind of thing, you may have to apply the context in order to develop your razor. And I recommend starting with your personal values, because the things that are really deeply important to you are not context dependent. They may change over time, but you don't need to know the context to know that it's important to you to do work that's challenging, or to connect with other folks in the community. So whenever you're trying to make a big decision or kind of focus your attention on things, you really want to start with understanding what's important to you and work your way out from there. For example, more tactically, say that I value a challenge. The reason I want to get into games is because it sounds like it's hard, and I just want to solve those problems. All right, so my razor is focus on solving hard problems. any possible opportunity that I have that doesn't involve solving hard problems because I've already done it before or it's just easy, straight to the bottom of the pile. I'm not going to waste my time on that because I like a challenge. So you may try out unfamiliar genres or tools or techniques that you haven't worked with before, getting a variety of different experiences and solving new problems. It's also great for adding variety to your portfolio. And it also expands, you can expand your job search in a way that allows you to still get that transference without being completely in another space. So for example, if you're a software engineer, working as a software engineer, developing business applications still allows you to have that challenge, develop your craft, and eventually bring it into games. Say you're interested in compensation, you really want to live in the city, the rent's crazy. Okay, great. Anything that I can do in games that people won't pay for, straight to the bottom of the pile. I'm going to focus on things that people will pay for. You've probably seen on the app stores, you have a bunch of clones of the really popular games. And it's a great way to build your portfolio and practice, particularly if you're not in this game design space, the space where you're actually coming up with the fun ideas for the game and how they should work. You just want to practice building it or making it look nice if you're more in the visual art space. Recreating those games, you can publish them. Making tools and assets, whether that's 3D models or plugins for Unity, whatever it is. And then, when it comes to your day job, get your bills paid, and that's totally fine. And just to run through a couple other examples, say, you really value community. Of course, you want to focus on building your connections and working in teams. So any kind of project that's just you, probably not something that you really want to focus on. You can look at joining game dev groups, going to game jams, working with your peers, or even contributing to open source projects, which is a great way to become part of an online community. And of course, if you're interested in creativity, you don't want to work on things that you don't get to be creative with, right? You want to focus on making new things that you've never seen before. Make experimental games. You don't have to make a full game just to support whatever is the thing that you want to be creative with, right? You can prototype bits and pieces of games. You don't need a complete project in order to have a portfolio piece. But for the pieces that you really have to have that are not interesting to you, you can use marketplace assets so that saves you time and allows you to focus on the more interesting things. Even with all this, you'll find that you are pointed in different directions, right? There may be some conflicts in terms of what's important to you and what that says that you should do. The most important thing to understand is that you have to commune with yourself and be honest with yourself to understand what's important to you. So it's fine to ask for advice from other people, but anybody who tells you what should be important to you and isn't telling you to look within yourself is not doing you any favors. So for example, when I applied to work at Riot Games as a gameplay engineer, they didn't want to offer me that job. They offered me a different job on the League of Legends player behavior team, working in back-end microservices, which is also very different tech stack, something I had never done before. But I took the job anyway, even though at the time I had no interest in player behavior because I really wanted to work at Riot. And then when I was at Riot, I actually, for a while, something that I really valued was having a title that affirmed my capabilities and my value to the company. I actually struggled when I was in school here with undiagnosed ADHD, and I felt like it really set me behind. And for probably the first 6 or 7 years of my career, I was really chasing my potential, like who I could have been if I had been a better student. And so that led me into management. But then I realized that I made that transition too soon, and I really missed being an engineer. I missed writing the code and reviewing, making technical plans and that sort of thing. So again, there's nothing wrong with having answers that point you in different directions. You just want to understand what the trade-offs are so that you can be intentional about those and understand that most of the time when you have options, none of them is going to be 100% the right answer and the rest zero, right? It's all shades of gray. And don't be afraid to accept that the things that matter to you change, right? Like when I was living in LA, status was pretty important. People get really excited when you talk about, working in games and particularly working at Riot, You get the nice car and the swag and all that stuff. And, you know, for me, that was important at the time, and I was really living the life. And, you know, when I moved back out here, I realized those things didn't matter to me so much anymore, partially because I guess nobody really cared as much and I was working from home, so who saw me? And that's totally fine. Because again, the most important thing is that you're honest with yourself and you're communing with yourself, right? Yeah, the world, as you'll find over the years, it changes in unexpected ways. So just keep an eye out for opportunities, even if they're not presented to you, just looking for them. And some of that is about making connections with people, asking questions, making offers, you know. But yeah, don't wait for people always to say like, hey, I have an opportunity for you. Start knocking on some of those doors and see which ones you can get to open. All right, let's talk about cutting to the pie. The most important thing if you want to become a game developer is to make games. And that can be really challenging, particularly when you're starting out. It's a struggle to do something that you haven't done before or something that you're not familiar with. And, you know, for me, I had a COVID project that I wanted to learn to draw, but it was mentally challenging because I really didn't like what I was drawing. It was just like really bad. And it made me feel bad about myself that, hey, why am I doing this when the output that I have is terrible? But the fact is, when you make something bad, it's way better than making something perfect in your head. You're not growing if you're not making bad things. And in fact, if you do something right the first time, your brain doesn't change. If you're familiar with neuroplasticity, the idea that when you do something a bunch of times, your brain literally changes to better support and optimize for the skills and thought patterns that you need to do that. That only works when you fail and you try again. So even though it can feel very stressful and maybe anxious, and our bodies are really good at making us feel like it's the end of the world when something doesn't feel right, but don't let your anxiety take the wheel. You get to decide what's important, make your decisions based on logic, at least as much as anything else. And try to embrace that discomfort, because without discomfort, there is no growth. All right. I don't know if you've ever gotten the advice to trust your gut. It's terrible advice, at least at this point in your life. You don't have a gut yet. And actually, research shows that we are very bad as human beings at predicting how we will experience a situation and whether or not we'll like a particular thing if we haven't had any experiences like it before. Intuition is honed by experience. Once you have relevant experiences, you can sort of start to intuit and have a more realistic sense of how something is going to land with you. So that means that when you do a little bit of everything and have a breadth of experiences, you're better prepared to understand and predict how you're going to like a certain thing. So for example, when I was entering the industry, you know, my manager would ask me, hey, what kind of work do you want to do? Do you want to get into graphics? Do you want to get into, you know, more gameplay stuff, more UI? And I had no idea because I hadn't done any of those things. I didn't even know where to start. And when you don't know where to go, and when you have equal options and you can't tell which ones are the better ones, the most important thing is just to make a decision and move forward rather than agonizing over what's the right choice. Because say, for example, that I decided, hey, I'm going to try out graphics, and I did that for a little while and realized that I hated it. Okay, now I have that experience, I have that understanding. Hopefully I learned a thing or two. Now I can try something else. And of course, importantly, while you're trying these things, some of them you may not like, some of them you might think you wouldn't like, but if you give it a chance, you'll surprise yourself. But pay attention to how you feel. Again, what's inside of you and how things make you feel and what you value. Those are the things that should really be driving your decisions. And keep in mind, you know, if your sort of metaphorical peak is that optimal, you know, 5-year self alter ego, sometimes you have to climb downhill a little bit in order to reach a higher peak. So, for example, you know, I took that job with player behavior, working in a totally different space. I did that for several years, advanced myself as an engineer. And when I wanted to move back to gameplay, I wasn't at a staff level as a gameplay engineer. I had been an associate the last time I did gameplay engineering. I was fortunate enough that my employer was willing to give me some space to ramp up on the job, but I seriously considered when I was looking at some other studios, for example, Bethesda here, I would have had to apply to a senior job, which would have been a demotion. And just because, you know, it is in some ways a step down the mountain, doesn't make it the wrong choice, because, you know, that was a path that would have led me to develop myself as a gameplay engineer. Yeah, when you're thinking about developing yourself, think about how you develop software in an iterative fashion. You will never know less about yourself than you do right now. As you live life, have experiences, try things, you learn more about yourself. And of course, yourself also changes. So don't make a plan now and then never revisit it. You want to kind of take things one step at a time and then update as your context updates, so that you're steering in a way that is relevant to what's going on around you. And you're also your own most reliable investment. If you are working on something, developing your skills, developing your experiences, developing your network, all of that stuff stays with you as you continue in your life and your career. So even if you feel like, oh, you know, this didn't go how I wanted it to, there are still things that you come away with better for. And if you get stuck at any point and realize, hey, I don't really know where to go with my career now, just go back to trying something new, because again, as you try different things, you're building up those experiences and your intuition. All right. Something that I didn't see a lot with, and I was no exception, particularly at the entry level, is humility. I think, for myself at least, when I entered into the studio, I was very quiet for the first couple of years. I was afraid to ask for assignments. I was afraid to ask for clarifications. I didn't want to admit that there were things that I didn't know, because I thought that showed weakness, that, hey, maybe I'm not qualified to be here, because if I was, I would understand what you were talking about. And when you try and cover up the gaps that you have, you don't have an opportunity to fill them in. When you are transparent about things in a way that is vulnerable, you're also building trust with the people that you're being honest with. So I would encourage you to ask questions and know that even the most advanced seniors in whatever craft, they don't know everything. But what they're really good at is understanding how to approach bridging that gap, how to get the necessary information and skills developed in order to complete whatever their task is. All right, let's get back into networking. Your network, it's like a hack. Gets you into rooms that you might not have otherwise got into, introductions to people that you may never have otherwise had a chance to talk to. Even just say like LinkedIn, as you're building up your network, it's going to affect your daily feed, the things that you see, right? Whether that's job leads or advice, craft tips. Your network is going to be transmitting information, and by adding them to your network, you're becoming a recipient of that information. So just keep that in mind as you're networking. I know a lot of folks are having issues even just getting a human to review their resume. There's a lot of like auto AI filtering going on these days, and advice about optimizing for that. But if you know somebody who can talk to a recruiter at whatever place you're trying to get in, just get those human eyes on your resume, and instantly, like, you have a much better chance of at least making it in for an interview, getting a chance at that job. Your previous colleagues, whether they're classmates or later on folks that you work with, they can also connect you with other folks, because yeah, right now, maybe you guys work on the same team or you're in the same class, and they don't have any special connections that you don't have, but you connect now, and 5 years from now, maybe they're working at a place that you want to go to, or they know somebody who knows somebody. It's, you've probably heard before, but it's really true. Like, who you know really matters. And of course, people actually do like to help other people. There's something I think psychological about sort of optimizing for the us and the us versus them. And if you are in somebody's network, you are in their community. You are on the us side, and they are more likely to want to help you and go out of their way to do so. And just, of course, a quick reminder again that anything you post or anything that you really put out in a professional environment, it shapes your brand. So keep that in mind and make sure that you are being intentional about the development of your brand. All right, let's talk about the LLM in the room. How do we make great games that people want to play and care about when AI makes it so that anyone can make a game? Don't play follow the leader. Yeah, AI is really fast and cheap, and it's great at learning from observation, which means that as things become standard, AI is going to train on that, and you're going to flood the market with cookie cutter games that all have this new thing that they were just trained on. Which is not to say that AI is bad or you shouldn't use it. Definitely leverage it to speed up your process. And also keep in mind that you, not the AI, is the expert on being human. So I would highly recommend that you lean into connecting with your players by evoking their emotions. That is the human element that AI has no insight into. So when you're creating experiences, if you make something that is real and raw and gives people an emotional experience, it is 100% going to stand out when every other game in their feed is just a crisp, clean cookie cutter version of the same thing. And as you probably already know, that's kind of the appeal of indie games, right? All right. So if you can't work at a studio, but you want to make games, it's quite possible that your team is just going to be you and your AI. And that's fine, but keep in mind then you have to be the diligent one because you are responsible for what you publish. So pay attention and stay engaged. It can be really easy to just feed a couple of prompts in and watch the AI do its thing and just, assume that it's done the right thing. And that would be a mistake. AI needs to take things slow, one step at a time, and show its work because, yes, it has access to an obscene amount of information and context, but not all of that is loaded in and being used at a particular moment when you're giving it a prompt. So you want to make sure that they have the context they need, whether that is asking them first to do research about something or telling the AI to ask you questions that will help guide its understanding of what it is that you need. Sometimes you get stuck in a loop. I don't know if you've ever seen that. You just ask them to do something and you're going back and forth a few prompts and you can't quite get them to do the thing you want. And that's when it's really helpful to understand what they're making, whether that is more on the code side or the art side. I guess myself as an engineer, I can't say for sure that it transfers one-to-one with art, but if you're not getting the functionality that you want, look at the code yourself and see if you can kind of figure out where the AI should start and give them that breadcrumb, and that will just kind of help pull them out of that loop that they get stuck in. And of course, you want to sanity check everything. You may not understand everything that needs to go into a game right away. That's totally fair. Just make sure that you're taking time to stop and learn, whether that's doing your own research or asking the AI to walk you through how to do something. And ask for the sources, verify the sources, because often you've probably seen hallucinations come from basically aggregating information from multiple sources, and they just sort of misinterpret the right way to aggregate it. And again, you're responsible for what you publish, okay? So anything that you put out there, it has your name, and depending if there's security vulnerabilities or some big issue, you do not want to get caught up in that, okay? So if there's something that you're not sure that you can review, whether because it's too much or it's not your area of expertise, get another set of eyes, human eyes, to take a look. All right. So in conclusion, becoming a professional game dev, no piece of cake. But with the hunger to get into game development and a sharp razor, you can still get your slice of pie. Thank you. Do we have time for questions? Anybody got any questions for us? Does the stream have a way to write in? Do they know how to send them in?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, if you're on the stream, send in your questions. Yeah, go ahead, Paul. Yeah, absolutely. So the question was, what does my alter ego look like 5 years in the future? So I'll say when I use this approach, my alter ego, it definitely, I try to lean on the side of being helpful. I'll never say I'm too busy for whatever it is, whether they're on my team or in my discipline, I like to stop and help. It creates obviously a positive engagement and connection. It gives me opportunities and exposures to work on things and solve problems that I haven't, looked at before. I also have a reputation for being a very critical code reviewer. Of course, want to make sure that I'm delivering feedback in a way that's compassionate and empathetic. But certainly, my alter ego is not going to let defects in as much as I can. If my name is on a code review, I don't care that I didn't write the code. I'm still going to catch the bugs, So I think, I would just say, like, generally, my alter ego is sort of the way I think of it. If my manager is writing my end of year review, what is the best possible thing that they can say that I did in this situation? And that's what I'm going to try to do. Yeah, go ahead. Sure. So the question is about building your portfolio, and particularly when you're taking the photos and videos of your work, how do you present it? Where do you put it? So when you have a portfolio, it depends on your discipline exactly how you want to do it. But generally, it's good to have some sort of personal website, which I believe if you go through the capstone program here, they still have you actually do that as part of the program. My portfolio, for example, I'll have, a list of the titles or projects that I worked on, a synopsis, a couple of screenshots, maybe a trailer or a gameplay video. And then I'll have, optionally, you can expand it to learn more about, I'll tell you about the particular challenges that I worked on, or you can actually download the software. But yeah, having a personal website is a great way to do that, because then you can link it on your resume, you can link it on your LinkedIn. I'm sure there's, services, like web services that allow you to put a portfolio if like web development isn't really your thing. Do like a WordPress or something. But yeah, just put them online, put it all together somewhere that's easy to navigate, that allows you to see things at a glance and then dig in further if you're more interested in more details. Sure. Anyone else? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So the question is, how do you develop your razor and your alter ego when you're just starting out and you don't really know where you want to go? And that is a very likely place, I think, that a lot of folks are starting out from, because again, if you haven't experienced things, how do you know if you're going to like it, or what direction you should possibly go in? And the best advice that I can give you is just to try things, especially and include things that you don't think that you'll like, because just like you'll be surprised that the things that you think that you will like turn out not to be that interesting to you when you do it in practice, you'll find that the opposite is true as well. Some of the things that you kind of wanted to stay away from, if you give it a chance, you may find it engaging and want to get into it further. So I would say early in your career, try to get a breadth of experiences, whether that's working on different genres, different tools, working with different folks. Try and just get a lot of different experiences to get a better sense of the landscape and sort of where you want to fit in there. And then as you start to find the things that are more engaging and interesting to you, then you want to work on developing your depth and really kind of hyper focus on developing the skills and experiences that will make you excellent in that particular space. And you can kind of bounce around between those two strategies as you go, because careers aren't linear. So there may be times when you want to pivot and you don't know where to pivot to. Go back to breadth. Any other questions? For me? Yeah. So the question is, if I had to start over, would I follow the path that I had already followed or go indie? Yeah. Yeah. So if I had to start over now, I would go indie, because I think it's really important, particularly with this kind of industry where a lot of people want to get into it and there's a lot of competition, to sort of ruthlessly prioritize. You want to be very efficient in how you're spending your time, just to kind of maximize your output. And so I really think that, unfortunately, the studio option just isn't a great way to go right now. Very low likelihood of success, even if you're a superstar. So be a superstar, make an indie game, make a splash, build your portfolio, get some experience doing other stuff. That's exactly what I would do. If I had to do it over again 13 years ago, I'd probably follow the same path. I'm pretty happy with where I ended up. Anything from the stream? Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so the question is, when you're building out your portfolio, if you find something that you enjoy doing, should you focus on building the depth there, or should you get other experiences as well? I would say it depends. And so the conversation that will lead you to the right answer for you starts again with what's important to you. What are your values, right? Like, why do you enjoy the thing that you're enjoying, and why are you considering going deep on that? And conversely, what would be the argument to go and experience more breadth, right? And I would say generally, you probably don't want to become like a hyper specialist very early in your career. Certainly, when you get more into like the senior level, there's two kind of categories, which is the generalist and the specialist. But when you're starting out, you want to have generally more breadth. Kind of starting in the generalist area will also help you make sure that, like, yeah, maybe you're really into that one thing that you're doing right now, but there may be something that you like even better, but you've never tried it, right? So yeah, I would say it really depends on what's important to you, but you can kind of figure that out. Start with your values, and then develop the razor from there, and kind of figure out where that guides you. And you know, that's probably going to take you in a couple different directions, but knowing what the trade-offs are between those will help you figure out what's right for you. And you know, spend a little bit of time doing whatever that is, and then come back to the question and run that exercise again. Yeah, go ahead. Question is, where do I see the industry in the next 5 years? I will say immediately that's a tricky question for someone who's a bit out of the loop, and also pretty broad. My hope is, honestly, 5 years is not a lot of time for an industry to develop. So I don't know, maybe it would be a little further out. But my hope is that we do kind of settle into a better space when it comes to working with LLMs. Obviously, that's a big hot topic, and particularly, you know, in the US, we're trying to optimize for time and money. And so I think we've definitely kind of, as an industry, swung too far in one direction. And some of the decisions that people, leadership in a lot of cases, have made during COVID, when everybody was at home playing games, over investing in things, that kind of compounded, I think, the effect of AI. So what I would hope to see, at least in the coming years, is some sort of industry approach to fixing the issues with our pipeline, where basically, like, now folks who are employed at these studios tend to be like very senior, because, you know, they can, you know, one senior may be producing the same amount of work as, like, you know, 10 associates, right? So, like, strategically, from an efficiency perspective, that might make sense. But as an industry, if we don't find a way to bring, you know, associates in and train them and give y'all a path to go, long term, we're not going to be in a good place. So we gotta find a way to stabilize and really optimize, not just for today's projects that we're making, but how we want to create and sustain our industry for decades. I think I saw a hand somewhere over here. Anyone? Yeah, go ahead. Okay, so I believe the question is, when you're working with other folks on a team, how do you take your razor and apply it in a way that doesn't take opportunities away from your teammates? Is that right? Okay, great. Yeah, so obviously it's going to be a conversation, hopefully, when you're working in these teams, that you help each other understand, these are the things that I want to work on, these are the ways that I want to grow. And if there is a conflict where you and somebody else, you're both very interested in working on something, I would definitely suggest working together, right? Like, pairing is a very powerful tool, particularly if you know, you still have a lot to learn in that space. But there may be times where you really just need one person to work on something, and you know, however you work it out with that person, it starts with understanding, again, like, what is the conflict, who wants to do what. So have that conversation first, and then, you know, talk about it and compromise the way you would about any other thing. Yeah. Oh, I'll also say, like, also don't be afraid to, you know, mix up your teams. Like, obviously not if it's a project and you've been assigned a team, you know, with school or whatever. But if you're working with somebody and you find that you're frequently in conflict and kind of stepping on each other's toes, they may not be the right person for you to work with in at least the short term. All right, I think we're all set. Thank you.